The following program is sponsored by Strong Against Cancer and Seattle Children's Hospital.
Tonight, the very latest in the quest to end childhood cancer.
We're at the forefront of change, and you guys are right there with us.
See how a child's own immune system can destroy cancer cells.
Immunotherapy is something that is groundbreaking.
It could really help a lot of people.
Ending Childhood Cancer, a Seattle Children's and Strong Against Cancer special. Good evening, I'm Molly Shen. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm here at the Bentown Center for Childhood Cancer Research. It's at labs like this one, where the best and brightest in science and medicine are striving to end childhood cancer. Every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a family hears the devastating words that their child has been diagnosed with cancer. Over the decades, cancer treatments have continued to evolve, but it really is in the last few years that we have seen some incredible advancement in cancer treatment. Many of those advances happening right here in Seattle. It seems like almost every day more discoveries are made that can save more kids and maybe make those words a little less devastating. At the forefront of these advancements is immunotherapy, a cutting-edge treatment that has saved the lives of children who were all out of options and is being expanded to give hope to many others like them. Tonight, you'll have a chance to join the Strong Against Cancer team, made of hardworking researchers, doctors, nurses, fundraising partners, and generous people like you. Your role is critical in getting treatments from the lab bench to the bedside. You can help accelerate the science and save children's lives by supporting this research. Together, we can get new, potentially life-saving treatment to more children and faster. Throughout this show, you can call the number on your screen and donate to Strong Against Cancer. Pay special attention to our miracle matches, times when your pledge is matched and you can double its impact. You'll also have an opportunity to join the Strong Against Cancer team through monthly giving. Our first story looks at a patient who went through the ringer across many years of cancer treatment, how immunotherapy saved his life, and how he is now giving back to others who need help.
Milton was one of our very first patients. He is, I call him a kid, obviously he's an adult now, but as a kid was diagnosed at the age of 8 with leukemia. Got treated, it came back, got treated, it came back. And through all of that, he was a kid that would show up and smiled and just made everybody feel good.
So, I was first diagnosed with ALL leukemia when I was 8 years old. The second time I was 15.
So when his cancer came back again and we were going to offer him immunotherapy, the nurses sort of pulled me aside in a corner and said, "You haven't met Milton before, but we're going to tell you all these amazing things about Milton, and you better take really good care of him." And it was like the entire clinic was on his side, and that was just because of the personality that Milton has, that he was so endeared to everybody. And so he came to us because he had failed all of the other therapies that he could get. And we said, well, we have this new therapy. We've treated one patient. We'd love for you to be the second patient if you want to try. When we think about the way we traditionally treat cancers, it's chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. They're all things that are effective, but come with a lot of side effects. And the reason they have a lot of side effects is they can affect your normal tissue in the same way they can affect your cancer cells. With immunotherapy, we're able to target the treatment directly to the cancer cells, where the rest of your body is hopefully left unharmed.
Compared to years and years of breaking your body down, you have something that you get one time and it fights it off. You might have something like, some side effects of feeling like you have like the cold or flu, but once that's done, you're cured of cancer.
It worked beautifully for him. Was able to get rid of his cancer cells, and now I think it's over 4 years later, he's still in remission, working at the hospital, which is another part of Milton that's so cool that he decided to come and give back to the hospital.
Seattle Children's, what that means to me, it's my home, it is my home away from home. It's somewhere I go when I don't have work, it's somewhere I go when I do have work. It's where I do my homework at. Literally, like, it's a place that I feel like I can hang out. Even through everything I've been through, the people I've lost in it, the people I've seen get through everything they have gotten through, like me, and are now living life. It's a place that has great significance to my life.
You see him just interact with everybody, both staff and family and patients, and he just glows when he's doing that.
What's it like working at Children's? It's weird being on the other side. At times, I kind of feel guilty in a sense. It's definitely weird a little bit to be the person coming in and waking up people and whatnot. Because I remember those times when they would come and wake me up and how I didn't like that. But all in all, I feel a sense of gratitude and a respect for how, like, all the employees played an impact on me. And now I feel like it's my turn to have that same type of impact on other kids.
Now is your chance to join the Strong Against Cancer team. Call the number on your screen to help get treatments to more young people like Milton and to help fund the important research that could save lives. If you call in the next 2 minutes, Fred Meyer will match your donation up to $5,000.
One of the main areas of our research here is to develop basically apps for T cells. Now, T cells in the body of a child with leukemia, for instance, are peacefully coexisting with the leukemic cells. The T cells can't really see them as being the bad guy. So we develop apps in genetic software, if you will. We make recombinant DNA molecules that we can download into the patient's T cells while they're outside the body. So the T cells have a new app for seeing the cancer cells and being able to attack and get rid of the cancer cells, thinking that they're fighting the common cold virus.
This lab at the Bentown Center for Childhood Cancer Research is where a lot of the magic happens.
What we're getting is blood from our patients, and we're harvesting the cells we want.
The other side of the glass is what's referred to as the clean room processing suite, where those cells are fed and nurtured. After being carefully, meticulously prepared for their life-saving mission, these reprogrammed T cells, referred to as ninja T cells, don't appear to be much. They can be contained in as little as a half a teaspoon, but they are fierce.
What our clinical trials have shown us with these reprogrammed T cells in our trials for pediatric leukemia is that you can infuse back into the patient's body just through an intravenous line in a procedure that takes 2 or 3 minutes, a couple 100,000 of these ninja T cells. And what they do is that when they see leukemia, not only do they attack the leukemia, but they start growing, and they grow to very large numbers, so there's more of the T cells to attack the cancer than the cancer. And so when that happens, we see patients go into remission, and that's really what's been so exciting over this past year, to see so many of our treated patients go into complete remissions.
Here's a microscopic look at what happens when those ninja cells are let loose. They hunt down, surround, and attack the cancer cells. The first phase of an immunotherapy clinical trial conducted at Seattle Children's had stunning results.
First application of this T cell technology is for children who have acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the most common form of cancer in children. And when a trial is done with a new therapy like this, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration says do the first trial in the sickest kids. So we enroll children who basically had no other options left. These are children that otherwise would be having hospice care, in which the leukemia will take a child's life in a matter of days or weeks. And these are the children that we enrolled in this trial. And we learned that when we infused these reprogrammed T cells, that over 90% of these children with absolutely refractory leukemia went into complete remissions.
Thank you to those who donated. If you haven't had a chance yet, don't worry. You can call the number on your screen anytime during this show, and there will be other opportunities to double your donation later in the show. Volunteer guilds are another way to get involved and support Strong Against Cancer. Let's hear from two special guilds, Colton's Army and Team Becca, and what they've done to continue the fight against childhood cancer.
Colton was diagnosed on September 9th of 2009. I knew that we couldn't do this alone. I knew that I was in shock, our family was in shock. We needed to communicate with the people that loved us, that we needed prayers, and we needed their prayers. It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, we're gonna need prayer warriors. What are we gonna do? And truly, I was like, I think we'll just create a Facebook page and call it Colton's Army, and that really, truly, that's how it started. It was truly a movement of amazing people who supported us and prayed for us.
In 2013, my wife, Becca, passed away from stomach cancer. She really believed in taking care of kids. She had a passion for it. The initial inception of Team Becca came when Becca was still alive, actually. Our first event was a get-together of friends at a local bar in Kirkland, and I think we had over 200 people show up to support Becca. We actually broke her out of the hospital against everybody's best wishes to get her down there, and they held an auction and everything. And following that, we, as a group, myself and two of Becca's really close friends, got together and said, we can do this. Why don't we do something with this? And so we agreed on pediatric cancer. And since then, our events have raised over $300,000 towards pediatric cancer research, specifically immunotherapy work being done at the Bentown Center for Childhood Cancer Research.
Immunotherapy is, as the first line of defense against cancer, is a miracle in itself. Knowing that kids can still go to school, knowing that, it's maybe just a blip in their life versus 8 years of just this and that and all these different chemicals and toxins and poisons that we're putting into our kids' bodies to save their lives.
In the wise words of Dr. Michael Jensen at the Bentown Center for Childhood Cancer Research, it's not a matter of if we're going to do this, it's a matter of when. And the when is simply a financial issue.
I think the importance of guilds to Seattle Children's sets them far apart from any other children's hospital in the world. There's, I think, 400 guilds approximately that support the hospital. And I think as a doctor, they realize that they get to do whatever they need to, whatever they believe is in their power to save a child, that nothing's going to stop them, including money or their lack of health insurance, whatever it might be. And I think Seattle Children's gets the very best doctors and nurses and providers to work there because of that, of the uncompensated care support that they get from the community. So I think it's huge. It's a win-win for truly everyone who is involved.
The guild concept was an important concept to us because what we really wanted to do was create awareness, raise money for a cause. And Seattle Children's has a great program specifically where their guild association handles that bureaucracy, and we're able to go out and focus on the things that we're passionate about, which are raising awareness and money for the causes that we care about.
What's amazing is the energy that people tell me after they've come to a Colton's Army event, that it makes them feel good. And I think it's because we are so pure in wanting to give back and wanting better and supporting Strong Against Cancer that it's infectious and people want to be part of it, and that's amazing to us. So
a small amount to you multiplied by thousands and 10,000s and millions of people can make a difference. Becca in life cared a whole lot about kids, and in death, I don't think that changes, and I think that actually has become stronger. rubbing off on a whole group of people that directly started with 3 and now is probably somewhere in the 500 or 600 range who know Becca's name and know what she thought was important, and come celebrate that every September.
Colton just turned 18. His future, in my opinion, is very bright. He's gonna start college in a month, and he's happy.
As you can see, there are lots of ways to get on the Strong Against Cancer team and make a real difference for children and families who are facing cancer. These donations are crucial to getting research from the lab to the bedside, getting potential cures to children who need them and need them soon. And you can join the fight too. For the next 2 minutes, Fred Meyer will match every donation that comes in, up to $2,500. Call now. And here's more from Dr. Nick Vitanza about why your donations are so critical.
I think that we've been entering, and for the foreseeable future will continue to be in a situation where the national government cannot fund us as well as they used to, and that more and more of our research funding has to come either from private donations, philanthropic groups, or from other private organizations. So we've been lucky here in Seattle that there's such a passionate group of people like our Pediatric Brain Tumor Research Guild who's been involved, and also individual donors throughout the area. But that continues to be incredibly important for people to kind of reach out, whether you've been affected or whether you haven't. Looking for ways that you can support people who are doing this work, I think, is incredibly important. And more of the research that we have to do with funding being so tight is really dependent on those funds. And a lot of the most important work that even I've been able to do over the last few years has really been possible through big donations, like a group called the McKenna Clare Foundation that's been incredibly generous, a family that was affected and started a group of donors and now is a nationwide huge support system. And that's one incredibly successful version of it, but even just individual people offering what they can makes a difference. It's unbelievable what the costs are to accomplish even very basic research tasks. So as you're proposing these kind of these accelerated approaches and these more technical approaches like immunotherapy, there's a lot of work that we have to go into in the lab first in making a model in our mice that makes sure that this is the same disease as we're treating in patients, to then try the treatments that we're doing to make sure that they're effective. And then following long-term our results in the lab and really making sure that all our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed, so that when we give these therapies to patients, we've really vetted it as much as possible. And so that's really critical to have the funding to be able to do that.
Next, we hear from a mother whose care and attention helped spot something in her son that would turn their family's life upside down. Let's take a look at Rourke's story.
Rourke started having his eyes drift a little bit. He'd be sitting at dinner and sort of look down, and when he'd look up, his eye would sort of start to go towards his nose, and then it would correct itself.
If my mom hadn't pointed out, I wouldn't even have known it was happening. I did not have any troubles with my vision at all.
His vision seemed fine, and so I thought I needed to take him to the pediatrician or maybe an ophthalmologist. When we saw her, they flashed a light in his eye and his pupil stopped dilating. And that is actually a sign that there's something pushing on that optic nerve behind his eyes. And so she told me to go directly to Seattle Children's for an emergency MRI. About 5 hours later in the middle of the night that they confirmed that there was a mass in his brain. And then we spent about a week in ICU while they prepared to give him a brain biopsy, which is terrifying as a parent. About 3 days after they had the biopsy done, they pulled us into a side room with a team of doctors, told us it was a germinoma tumor. And it was a really surreal experience because I remember one of the doctors saying, "It's good news." And then he told me my son was gonna have 4 months of chemo and 2 months of radiation.
I remember that day. That was one of the worst days of my life.
Rourke's diagnosis is a tumor called a germinoma. So germinoma tumors can be found in midline areas like the spine, the heart, and in this case, Rourke's tumor is in the very center of his brain near his pineal gland.
We found out that if it had gone on for like a week longer, I would have started like throwing up and getting headaches and stuff.
The struggle with this brain tumor has always been that it is sort of the best kind of brain tumor, but it's the worst kind of cancer. So we have walked this strange line of having the best of the worst and not knowing how to feel about that. I remember sitting at the Thanksgiving table and we started doing our annual "What are we thankful for?" and we just cried. We just started because we didn't know what to be thankful for that year. So we went to the HEMOC clinic and did 3 days in a row of chemotherapy, and then we would go home for 2 weeks, rest and recover, and just about the time that he would start to feel better, we would start over again. And that as a parent is so incredibly painful to watch and so counterintuitive. You'll never experience something like that as a parent.
Everyone has supported me, but my mom has been the best person through all of this. She was the one who was next to me during my biopsy, during chemo. She's kind of the one who found out about all this. And she's been the person who's supported me most.
I always told people when they asked me what they could do for Rourke, I asked them to pray for Rourke like he was their son, like he was their boy. Because only if you can imagine getting on your knees and praying for your own son, could you have any idea how painful and scary this situation is. Seattle Children's is, as a parent when you come here, that is a super vulnerable position to be in, to walk in with no knowledge of something and knowing that your child's life is on the line and just sort of handing them over to people you've never met. And it's hard to imagine someone caring as much as you do.
She is the greatest mom that I could possibly ask for, and thank you for being with me through all of this.
It's a very specific experience to have a child with cancer, and it can be very alienating because there are so many different kinds of cancers, and sometimes it's hard to even relate with other cancer parents because you don't know if you're more fortunate than them or vice versa. It's hard to know who to speak to, who to reach out to. Many times your doctors and nurses, that's it. They're your lifeline.
I would like to say to them, thank you so much for saving my life. And I hope I never see any of you again.
I owe my son's life to Seattle Children's Hospital. They have saved us in so many ways. They have just made us feel so secure and so loved, and it's just a beautiful, magical place to be in such a terrible time. Today was his last radiation treatment, so it's a big celebration today.
After months of chemotherapy and radiation, Rourke is thriving and happy to get on with his life. But what could treatments for tumors such as those look like in the future? Our next Miracle Match will investigate just that. For the next 2 minutes, Fred Meyer will match your donation up to $5,000. Call the number at the bottom of your screen and help support this life-saving research. While you're calling in, let's hear from Dr. Courtney Crane about the possible future of immunotherapy for solid tumors.
As completely and as effectively as CAR T cells have been for leukemia, we now hope to translate that to every type of cancer that is diagnosed.
What are you most focused on in your research?
A lot of the traditional immunotherapies that are coming through are realizing their limitations when it comes to solid tumors. And so what we do in my lab is we try to take advantage of a different type of white blood cell called a macrophage, and we engineer these macrophages to kind of assist the T cells and NK cells and other immune cells that are responsible for eliminating the tumor. When we talk about leukemia, that's a blood-borne tumor, and so usually when a T cell runs into a tumor cell, it's a one-on-one conversation. But in a solid tumor, you're asking a T cell to come in and counteract billions sometimes of tumor cells. And so if we have something that serves as a support system for them, we think that they'll be better able to do that.
And this could be all kinds of different cancers?
We think that we could treat things like brain tumors, neuroblastoma, a bunch of different types of solid tumors, sarcomas, the list goes on and on.
We're talking about patients who have no other options.
That's right. So the patients that we see have exhausted all of their therapeutic options. They've been through chemotherapy and radiation, often multiple surgeries. And so these are the toughest cases that we get, and we think that we can tackle those with this new cell type. I think everyone at the Research Institute is passionate about providing hope to these families, and in the coming years, the reason that we work so hard and feel so passionately about it is that we really do believe in it, and we believe that the future of pediatric cancer is going to be immunotherapy, safer alternatives to chemotherapy and radiation that allows these kids to live their best lives.
Thank you so much to everyone who has donated. We'll have more opportunities for you to double your donation throughout the show, so keep an eye out. Coming up next, we'll hear from the Strong Against Cancer team captain, Russell Wilson, on why he supports pediatric cancer research and how you can join his team. Plus, stories from mothers of children who have faced childhood cancer head-on and how they came out the other side. Stay tuned for more stories of hardship, discovery, and triumph. Still to come on this Strong Against Cancer special.
Justin is going home, and he's leaving cancer behind. A new treatment is producing stunning results by harnessing the power of the body's own immune system. But we need your help in bringing this life-saving treatment to more young people. That's why there's Strong Against Cancer, a team of doctors, nurses, researchers, hospitals, companies, and people like you, captained by Russell Wilson.
With your support, this will be the beginning of the end to childhood cancer.
This year marks the 10th annual Run of Hope, so it's time to bring your A game. You ready?
You ready?
Join in for this special day of events that brings together families and community to raise funds and awareness for brain cancer research at Seattle Children's. Run of Hope has changed many lives over the last 10 years.
But we're just getting started.
Join us at 10 a.m. on Sunday, September 23rd for the 5K run and 3K walk. All proceeds benefit Seattle Children.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Welcome back. How would you like to join the Strong Against Cancer Club? By committing to $20 a month charged on your MasterCard, Visa, American Express, or Discover card, you can give automatically every month. There's no need to renew. For less than $1 a day, you can support this groundbreaking research and help more children who desperately need it. What better time to start than during Childhood Cancer Awareness Month? What is it like when your child gets diagnosed with cancer? What do? Let's hear firsthand from mothers on the Strong Against Cancer team about how and when they learned their children were in for the toughest battles of their lives.
So we were just a completely normal family before my daughter Maricela was diagnosed with cancer.
Katie's diagnosis came when she was 3.5. She was an extraordinarily normal 3.5-year-old in preschool.
Ellie was diagnosed at 4 months old. She went, in her 4 years, she went through 28 rounds of chemo, 17 surgeries, and 42 days of radiation.
Typical day, field trip to the zoo, everything's great, and all of a sudden she says she just doesn't feel right. Her body doesn't feel good. I think it was 5 o'clock the next morning we found out that she had cancer.
It was just awful because she was just a baby. When you hear of the word cancer, you automatically think death, and what our emotions were going through is we can't lose this baby of ours.
She was scared. The first words that came out of Sienna's mouth when she found out that she relapsed was, "Am I gonna die?" And no 7-year-old should say that or wonder that if they're gonna die.
And I just started screaming. I said, she can't have cancer. That's cancer, right? And I don't want her to die. I just kept screaming, I don't want her to die.
The journey itself is hard, but the way it ended is even harder. And, losing a child is one of the worst things a parent could ever go through. Your whole world's turned upside down.
Think deeply about what this would feel like if it were your child or your grandchild. And kids' cancers are so underfunded that this research, every dollar really does make a difference.
When you lose a kid, your biggest fear is them being forgotten. I need for people to remember her journey, to remember her spirit. I hope that some of the trials that she participated in will change lives for other kids battling this.
I want to say to all the doctors and researchers and nurses that you are changing the world, and because of you, maybe I'll see my daughter graduate, maybe I'll see her get married. You're heroes. You're heroes.
We need people to step up and to start moving mountains for these kids. I'm here because I can't watch any more moms bury their children.
Your support is crucial to the fight against childhood cancer and to moving toward a future where moms like Sarah never have to lose a child. By donating tonight, you can help ensure that cutting-edge research can continue to move forward and help save many lives for years to come. You've probably heard that the Strong Against Cancer team is led by someone who's on another team. Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson is the captain of the Strong Against Cancer team. He's a passionate leader of a cause in which he deeply believes. This is your chance to join Russell Wilson and the many researchers and providers who are working tirelessly to end childhood cancer. Call in the next 2 minutes and your donation will be doubled by our friends at Fred Meyer. You too can be strong against cancer.
When I initially decided to support Strong Against Cancer, it was a no-brainer. When I was able to see what the effects could possibly be, I was able to walk into a room, Milton Wright's room. He was 19 years old at the time, African-American kid, a really, really bright kid, but had cancer 3 different times. And Milton really didn't want to hear it anymore. He was kind of done with it, everything, and just life in general, he felt like. And I had the opportunity to speak to the doctors and all the amazing work that Dr. Mike Jensen's been doing, and the nurses and everybody else, and just the Strong Against Cancer team. And they told me about this idea of T-cell therapy, and they really wanted to try to do it on Milton. And so I said, Doc, what can I do? How can I help? And so I went back into the room and told him the story about my dad and his miracle and health and everything else. And I told Milton, I said, Milton, the reality of your situation is, if you try T-cell therapy and it doesn't work, will you even remember? I said, but if you do try it and it does work, you'll change a generation. You'll change kids' lives for years and years and years to come. And I told him, why not you? Shortly after, he goes, gets T-cell therapy. 2 weeks later, cancer's gone. And it's been an amazing process to see all the kids that are being cured, of all the amazing things that we're doing with Strong Against Cancer. And people always ask me, why would you tell other people to support Strong Against Cancer? Why wouldn't I? Why not? It's an amazing thing, and it takes one step at a time. It takes some awareness, it takes some belief, it takes some financial funds, really. When you say yes, you're saving a kid's life, and that's the reality. It could be my kids, it could be your kids, it could be somebody else's kids that you know, but the reality is we're at the forefront of change, and you guys are right there with us.
It's incredibly difficult for a parent to see their child in pain. Our next story looks at a family that faced the unthinkable when their daughter's slow and agonizing steps became the first indicators of a high-risk tumor, and how the next months would be the fight for her life. Here's Emmy's story.
When Emmy was 2 years old, we started to notice that something was wrong. She would bend over and hold her lower back while she was trying to take these small, painful steps. I took a video of her that morning before we took her to the hospital because I didn't want to make her walk the rest of the day, and I knew the doctors and nurses would need to know what I was talking about. So I painfully sat there and recorded her taking those small steps, and I scooped her up, and then she didn't walk the rest of the day. You know that kids have cancer, but you never think it'll be your own.
It's hard to put into words the crushing feeling that is. Your whole world stops. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
Unfortunately, Emmy had what we call high-risk neuroblastoma, and it arises in parts of the nervous system that are outside of the brain.
Her tumor had wrapped around her spine and gone into her spinal canal. It had broken through her diaphragm and started invading the space in her lung cavity.
And even with the most aggressive treatment that we give, only half of the children survive. The therapy for high-risk neuroblastoma is very complicated and it's very intense.
We were inpatient at Seattle Children's for over 200 nights. 2 weeks of that was spent in the ICU because her pain meds were so high that they were afraid that she'd stop breathing. Emmy had 5 rounds of chemotherapy, 2 surgeries, a stem cell transplant. Seattle Children's became our home. The nurses were our heroes, and the doctors were not only brilliant, but friendly and kind.
Our hope for the future is that we will develop an immunotherapy that can take away some of that horrific year to year and a half of treatment. The current treatment long-term effects includes risks for other types of cancer, growth disturbances, heart function effects. We want to eliminate those risks. Our hope for immunotherapy, someday it will become the standard of care for children with cancer.
The doctors and the team at Seattle Children's saved Emmy's life.
I am inspired by Emmy and all patients with neuroblastoma. I think philanthropy gives us all hope that the future for cancer is going to be better. And I'm absolutely dedicated and positive that we're going to make those breakthroughs in this field.
Hey, watch where you're going.
Every time I see Emmy jump or run, I still think it's a miracle. I am just overwhelmed with joy. And I think any mom would be, but I think that there's just something special about her journey that brings an extra sense of happiness.
It's stories like Emmy's that make us thankful for the great pediatric research teams in our region. But even the best current treatments we have can be tough for such young kids. Many children will come out of their treatments being cancer-free, only to face a reoccurrence later in life. Our next Miracle Match looks at Dr. Surajit Sakar and how he feels immunotherapy can be the key to changing that. Call anytime in the next 2 minutes and your donation will be doubled, up to $5,000 by Fred Meyer. So call in and join the team. Together, we can continue taking steps forward to defeat pediatric cancer.
Once we get rid of cancer, we are in remission. But there is no guarantee that the remission will be lifelong. I'm passionate about curing diseases that last for a lifetime. I mean, the cure should last for a lifetime. We get chickenpox. We never get chickenpox again, and that's because chickenpox forms immune memories in our body. Sounds like science fiction, but that's how our vaccines work. Can we make immunotherapies that we currently work on, can we make them such robust that will form memories to these cancer and then eliminate cancer and keep them at bay without ever worrying about that this is going to come back? Now, how amazing is that?
Do you expect this to be something that you can have happen in your lab in your lifetime?
Absolutely. In the last 10 years, we have moved so many of these experimental therapies, which were deemed towards cancers that were uncurable. So why can't we do that in the next 50 years? It's 5 times the time scale. So we should be able to do this.
What are you most passionate about?
I'm passionate about getting up every day, coming to work and saying, I'm going to make discoveries that will lead to curative therapies that will last the lifetime of the patient. That's a promise that's hard not to get out of bed every day for.
Thank you to those who donated. If you haven't had a chance yet, don't worry. You can call the number on your screen anytime during this show. And there will be other opportunities to double your donation later in the show. Coming up after the break, we'll hear from a patient whose fight against a brain tumor inspired others and how she's doing now. Plus, a look at the new trials to treat brain tumors taking place right here at Seattle Children's. Stay tuned.
This year marks the 10th annual Run of Hope, so it's time to bring your A game. You ready?
You ready?
Join in for this special day of events that brings together families and community to raise funds and awareness for brain cancer research at Seattle Children's. Run of Hope has changed many lives over the last 10 years.
But we're just getting started.
Join us at 10 a.m. on Sunday, September 23rd for the 5K run and 3K walk. All proceeds benefit Seattle Children's.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Justin is going home, and he's leaving cancer behind. A new treatment is producing stunning results by harnessing the power of the body's own immune system. But we need your help in bringing this life-saving treatment to more young people. That's why there's Strong Against Cancer, a team of doctors, nurses, researchers, hospitals, companies, and people like you, captained by Russell Wilson.
With your support, this will be the beginning of the end to childhood cancer.
Welcome back. It's Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and here's a way you can support this important cause. Join the Strong Against Cancer Club by committing to $20 a month charged on your MasterCard, Visa, American Express, or Discover card. You can give automatically every month. There's no need to renew. For less than $1 a day, you can support this groundbreaking research and help more children who desperately need it. When a child gets cancer, it affects the entire family. Those impacted by childhood cancer experience both heartbreak and hope.
He was diagnosed on May 2nd of 2014, around 10:30 at night. I'll never forget it.
Earth-shattering, I mean, life-changing. I can't even, there's so many strong words that come to mind. It changed the trajectory of my family's whole life in just one day. Everything that seemed really important before all of a sudden wasn't important. Your family and your kids are everything, so you expect to hear that kind of news about an older person, and to hear it about your own kid. Again, I don't wish that moment on any family.
Hearing that your child has a brain tumor, your first thought is, no, not my child. And no, because when you think of brain tumor, you think he's going to die. Is my son Henrik going to die? And it was so traumatic that I don't know how we coped. We just did. The help from my side of the family in particular, grandparents, brothers, was critical. We couldn't have gotten through it without them.
I always say the day before August 14th, 2014, I wasn't a cancer mom either. I would have never in a million years thought that this would be me. And I don't think anyone does, but you can only hope that when something like this happens to you, that there are people like you out there fighting for my kids, because you just never know. And you never want it to be your kid, but you never know.
Brain tumors are some of the trickiest cancers to treat, especially in children. Dr. Nick Vitanza knows that better than most as a pediatric oncologist at Seattle Children's who specializes in terminal brain tumors. But all hope is not lost. He and his team are looking to change how we approach brain tumors. Let's check it out.
Our first pediatric neuro-oncology CAR T-cell trial will be called Brainchild 01. We'll be delivering CAR T-cells through catheters directly into the brain.
One of the big challenges with brain tumors is that blood-brain barrier, that protective armor of our body that keeps our brain kind of separated from the rest of the body, is a major hindrance to getting drugs across. And so we think the best approach is to put the T-cells right where they need to be.
There's children that unfortunately have failed their therapies and will be able to come to Seattle Children's Hospital and receive these CAR T-cells and hopefully offer them a cure for a disease that otherwise wouldn't have one.
We have a group of patients with tumors that are difficult to find because they're in the central nervous system, they're in the brain. So our Brainchild trials are going to try to overcome that by putting those T-cells right back into the brain in the area where the tumor was, so we can get them into the locations that they need to be, so the tumor can't hide within the brain and have the T-cells on the outside.
Brainchild currently has 2 trials that have been FDA approved and are expecting several more in the next couple of years. The goal? To find a therapy that can treat and possibly cure brain tumors without the harsh side effects of chemotherapy and radiation.
The majority of children will be enrolling on Brainchild 01 are going to be children who otherwise would pass away from their disease with the conventional options that are available. And some of these children go on to have very debilitating chronic illnesses of frequent re-resections of tumors, radiation on top of previous radiation. So what we're hoping is another avenue with less toxicity, not retreading the same attempts we've already tried, and hopefully offering a chance for cure. Part of the promise of immunotherapy is, one, to cure diseases that we currently don't have cures for. So an example is diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, or DIPG. That's unfortunately a universally fatal tumor of the brainstem of the upper spinal cord, which we currently don't have any curative options for. That's a group of children that are just wildly underserved by current medicine and need new therapies. So something like immunotherapy, where this difficult to reach, unsurgically resectable disease, to give an immunotherapy, to give a white blood cell that's engineered specifically to fight that tumor and then be able to give that into the brain, gives us a realistic chance of making progress in this disease.
I think back just within the last 5 years, we've gone from a time where many patients with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, many children were hopeless. They had fatal relapse disease, and there was no more chemotherapy or radiation or bone marrow transplant that could get them into a remission. And now we're at a state through our clinical trials where more than 90% of these children are getting into a remission. It's happened so fast that it's actually become now expected. That's what happens when you give these CAR T cells to these children with leukemia. So we've already become so accustomed to that outcome that it's expected. It's now commonplace. What we're really pushing hard on is, can we make that reality happen for children with neuroblastoma, children with brain tumors and sarcomas, all these other types of cancers in children that are not curable today. And that's where we're pushing really hard.
I think giving families hope is incredibly important, even for the children I take care of with DIPG, and we talk early on about how it's a disease we're not going to be able to cure, that there was also a day and age where leukemia didn't have a cure, and then all of a sudden 10% of children were cured, and then 40%, and then 70%, and now over 90%. And so that will happen. And the first patient who got cured of leukemia, probably when he first had leukemia, there wasn't a cure yet. And so someone with DIPG somewhere will not have a cure, but the next patient at that hospital will.
The potential for this clinical trial is incredible, as is the impact it could have on children and their families. But research like this can be expensive, and it receives very little government funding. So we rely on donors like you to support this research and to help continue to move forward these incredible advances faster, to save lives and give hope to those who would otherwise have none. It's time now for another miracle match, a chance for you to call the number at the bottom of your screen to make a donation to Strong Against Cancer. If you call in the next 2 minutes, your pledge will be matched up to $2,500 by Fred Meyer. Get calling. And hear from Dr. Mike Jensen and Dr. Rebecca Gardner on why your donations are so important.
We don't have big companies that are bankrolling this work. So we have to do these trials ourselves, and the math is, we need about $10 million per new T cell, and we have 5 or 6 of them. So you could see that the costs for doing these trials that are under FDA approval, that require the same level of care and quality and systems that help make it as safe as possible. We have to do our trials at the same standards as a big pharma company, but yet we don't have stocks that we could sell. We don't have investors like that. So what we need is help from the community.
Philanthropy and donating money is one of the things that's the easiest to do. It doesn't take a lot of time to be able to say, hey, I want to contribute, and it doesn't matter if that's $10 or $200. It's just important that everybody kind of works together as a community.
The research in the laboratory is just accelerating, and probably one of our biggest challenges is we have more apps in the freezers here at the Bend Town Center than we have the resources necessary to start the clinical trials. And so that's a huge challenge. It's a bit of a frustration, to be honest with you, that now it's not science that is the rate limiting step. It's simply the funding to get these trials running and pay for those expenses.
Our next story looks at the incredibly brave and resilient Avery, who at the young age of 13 has undergone 5 brain surgeries and countless rounds of chemotherapy and radiation. But through her fight against her brain tumor, she has become a leader for other patients as well as her community.
At age 10, Avery was diagnosed with an incredibly rare brain tumor called ATRT, a type of cancer that only affects about 100 people per year in the United States.
It was right in the middle of my brain, so it was really scary, especially on how rare it was and that there wasn't tons to be known about it.
This is something you can never prepare for. People constantly say to me, like, I can't imagine, or I don't know how you do this, and honestly, you can't imagine. It's much worse than you can imagine.
With the size and location of Avery's tumor, the team had to shrink it with radiation before they could remove it with surgery. But when they did, it was a huge success.
It took all my tumor out, and it was crazy, and I was still the same person, which was really amazing, and I was really happy.
We were excited by how strong she was through treatment, how well she did with everything, and she was really, a beacon of hope to the team, but also other patients who interacted with her.
I can tell you that every kid I have met during this process is equally as impressive as my daughter. They are the warriors among us. They are
so impressive.
And I think that it's my job and it's my daughter's job to continue to fight for them, because so many of them do not make it. And we are very fortunate to be sitting here with you today, and I will not forget them.
Avery and her family are continuing to fight for children like her, for families who are fighting cancer. By helping raise funds and awareness for childhood cancer research at events like Run of Hope, Avery is truly an inspiration to her community. It's sometimes easy to forget that she's just a kid.
It's hard enough to be in 7th grade in general, but to be a 7th grader and have been through what she has been through it's tough. It's really tough. You can treat children much more aggressively than adults because their bodies heal quicker, they recover faster. Nothing could have prepared me to see what my daughter went through. The treatment was so much worse, so much harder.
I had a feeding tube, which I threw up like 7 times. I had to get 7 or 8 new feeding tubes, which is like one of the worst parts. And that's saying a lot because of all the radiation and the chemo. It really took a toll on me.
Physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way it touches you. Some of the most direct things were that one of the drugs really affected her nerves. She could not hardly stand up. She had no balance. She had so weak, it took so much from her in so many different ways. And then also the long-term side effects, they're still completely unknown.
She went through a lot of harsh treatment also, chemotherapy and radiation. And even though she's doing wonderfully now and acting in plays and playing sports and a very alive, happy girl who I think will have a very high quality of life, she's more affected than I'm sure that she would like to be. And there's other children who unfortunately go through the same treatment are even more affected. And so it is a reminder that even in the cases like Avery where we're successful and curative, there's always something that we can do better. And so even if we cure every single child with Avery's disease, that shouldn't be the end of the line. The question should be, how can we cure them, but then make sure that they have a better quality of life afterwards?
If the immunotherapy was an option for Avery, none of those side effects would happen, none.
not only her initial treatment, but the long-term side effects from the treatment. It's pretty overwhelming to even think of that as a possibility. You know, a breakthrough in cancer in any form is a breakthrough for everyone, and especially for these kids with brain tumors, which is the leading cause of death for disease-related death in the US for children. It's a really important moment and an exciting moment.
In cases like mine, where it's really rare and it's hard to get to, especially in brain tumors, it could really help a lot of people.
Even though immunotherapy wasn't available for Avery, she weathered her treatments and is doing much better today.
I'm doing great today, yeah. I'm getting a lot stronger, and I'm just glad to be cancer-free.
You can be the hope when another family hears your child has cancer. This final miracle match is once again sponsored by our friends at Fred Meyer, and for the next 2 minutes, they will match your donation up to $5,000. You can double the impact of your donation by calling in the next 2 minutes. Please call the number on your screen and help get these promising treatments working for children for whom time is a factor. Let's hear more from families affected by childhood cancer.
Strong is Mason, this guy right here.
Strong means to me never losing hope and never losing faith.
Strong is Henrik. Strong is awesome Avery. Strong Against Cancer for me means that someday, if we collectively work together, if we're strong together, we have the opportunity to end pediatric cancer.
Strong is this chick right here. Sienna's strong because she has to persevere where nobody should persevere.
Strong is definitely Annalisa. She is the strongest person I know. She is my hero.
Strong is all the kids with cancer who are battling or have gotten past cancer, because they are strong now and will always be strong.
Strong means to me never giving up. Strong is me.
Strong is my baby girl. And even though my child's not here today, I will continue to fight for all these kids, and I'm so grateful that you're all willing to fight for them too.
Strong is community. Everyone banding together, raising support to make a difference in our community and in your community. You know, one day it could be my kid, it could be my child, or it could be yours. Let's make a difference, and let's be strong together.
We want to sincerely thank you for your generous donations tonight, for supporting Strong Against Cancer and being a part of the quest to end childhood cancer. We appreciate all the donations and all the ways you support these children and those who are working tirelessly to help them be strong against cancer. I'm Molly Shen. Thanks for watching, and good night.